Diptychs are usually two panels, right? They are hinged together in some way. They usually are altarpieces. They look kind of like a notebook. They fold in on each other. They have something connecting them. And a triptych is the same thing, except this time it's three panels. Tri, three, di, two. So this is a really good example of a diptych. You can see how the water, connects the two images, and the background is fairly consistent. And you can tell that like the main theme in these is the trees, right?
Where do we most commonly find these?
You can really commonly find these like in churches. They're, like I said, you usually use those altar pieces, and so instead of like a nature scene like this, you would have like iconography on them. So I think, Sheila, you said that there was a church here in Denison.
So there's probably a couple for sure. St. Patrick's Catholic Church does not have a painting, but they have a triptych that is a stained glass. So you might not always find these in painting, you might find them in other mediums, but it's going to be the same sort of concept. What she was talking about with the diptychs, and you can see this here, two panels, there's a hinge. You guys see how these would be folded together and they'd be one shape? Often with triptychs, you would have one shape in the center, and then you would have your hinges on the sides, and you would have two smaller panels on either side that when they folded in, it would shut the front part of it, if that makes sense. So this is really common for when you have a folded panel of a triptych, but you don't always have folded panels. So the one in St. Patrick's kind of looks, sorry, that's really uneven, but it has that same sort of shape on this side, and then that same sort of shape on this side. But the center one is bigger. You have two smaller panels on the left and the right hand side. It's made out of stained glass, so obviously it's not supposed to be closed, but you still have the same sort of image. The one in St. Patrick's, you have the idea of Jesus on the cross. And then on this side, you have the idea of, I think this one is John, and this one is Peter. But, so you have them like on either side, the left and the right hand, hands of Jesus.
Yeah. And then like what Sheila said, they're not always painting, usually in a bunch of different mediums, and they don't always have to fold in on each other. Sometimes you can have them just like next to each other, like you wouldn't even necessarily have to have these hinges here for this one, you could just have them viewed together. A lot of times people can also overlap them, and this wouldn't even necessarily have to be a horizontal viewing. You could have like a vertical viewing, like one stacked on top of each other. You can do a whole lot of different things with diptychs and triptychs. So here's an example of a triptych, where this is the center panel and your two side panels, and you can tell that they're not, they could stand alone and like be perfectly fine as like individual altarpieces, but they work really well together, and in this case are meant to be viewed together as one whole piece.
This is actually a painting by El Greco in Toledo, Spain. He painted it directly onto the walls of his home church, basically. And
Is it a fresco method?
yeah, it's a fresco with lots of gold leaf on top, which has had to be reapplied like 100 times. But yeah, so it is actually not El Greco's. I mean, there's some signals of his typical style. Do you guys see on the left-hand panel? Look at the guy's leg at the bottom. super like stretched out, skinny. It looks like, there's not even, we talk about skin and bone, like no muscle, like that skin and bone. Look at the hands of all the different people. You see how they're also long and skinny, stretched out, and you can see knuckles really strongly on them. Again, you see lots of bony structures. That is really common. If you look at his chest, who said chest? Is that you? Yeah, you look at the chest, you can actually see like the idea of the ribs. That's a really strong indicator for Greco, but normally his faces are also really drawn and gaunt. And in these three faces, especially the face of Mary in the center, she's much rounder and softer. The other two are a little bit more gaunt, more like his typical style. But Mary is a little outside of his typical style. But yeah, he painted this directly onto a wall with the fresco manner. And then it's been painted around. So at one point in time, it actually, the two top areas in the center, so those kind of round areas in between the three panels, those got fully painted over, and they had to try to bring them back. So they're slightly different than what they originally would have looked like.
So for this project, you guys have to create a diptych or a triptych that goes together and is joined by a theme. And if you guys need help, that's what copy paper is for. And if you guys need help coming up with an idea, Sheila and I are here to help. Your images, your panels should not be the exact same. They have to be two different things, but like I said, joined by a theme. So, like, let's say we had.
Someone give something.
Yeah, give me an idea.
War.
War.
Okay, so war we have a gun, right? And what's another thing that we could do to represent war?
Tank.
A tank? I can't draw a tank. This is
Excellent take.
that's my tank. Okay. They're joined by the same theme, but they're not the exact same image, right? And this, in this case, how would we want them to be viewed? Do you want them like side by side? Do you want one like on top of the other? And then you also think about like what size panels do you want? Do you want like a small square and then like a long rectangle? Do you want two squares and a long, like if you do a triptych, do you want two squares? How do you want them to be viewed and what size of panels do you want? Okay. And so that went into your panels and your sections. Does anyone have any questions on the assignment?
All right, guys, so one thing that she doesn't know, you guys had your Art 3 survey. It gave you a list of your mediums, and it also gave you a list of sizes. That's not gonna be entirely accurate on this particular project because instead of just one piece, you have to do two pieces. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit bigger, but are we spending twice the amount of time on this project?
No.
No, we are spending a little bit more time. You guys got 2 extra days than normal, but you guys normally have about 5 days to work on something. I'm not doing 10 days to work on this. You're getting 7 days to work on this. So there is a little bit of extra time for you guys to do your other panels, but it doesn't mean that I'm expecting it to be twice as big as the original sheet. So it kind of depends on what your medium is, just like all the others. You know, if you're doing pastel, you're gonna go a lot faster than if you're doing Prismacolor. So if you're doing Prismacolor, I expect to see all of the blending and the detail, just like I normally expect to see, but your sizes are gonna be smaller than if you work with pastels. Are we up there in this?
And then we have some examples. So this one can tell us meant to be a continuation, but can anyone tell me why it's a continuation? Like, can you see why they would be viewed as like one whole instead of two separate?
Well, for one thing, they really look similar, like the
They do look really similar.
like the same kind of lines and colors.
So we got one person who said art style.
The the style, yeah, the style is the same. The way that the paint has been applied to the canvas, with these like really quick, sort of long brush strokes, you can see everything really well. The colors are the same in both panels. The lines don't really line up all that well, but because of the way that they flow into each other, you can tell that they're meant to be like a continuation of one into the next. What about this one? What connects these two?
Kind of shows comparison, because like the lead, how big, like the lead, how it shows the veins, and then the arm, how it also shows the veins as well.
Exactly. Yeah, would you guys think like these would go together if they were like on two different sides of the room? And it doesn't always have to, they don't always have to look like they would go together. These are really different, but they complement each other in really unique ways. I really like that.
What the purpose of that last one, go back?
The kid?
On this one of the things that I often like to talk about with diptychs and triptychs is distance can play a really big key in understanding different things. So in this one, you have this idea of a really, medium distance shot, the kid's in the center of the pane, there's action, you can see a lot going on. And then in the other panel, it's much closer. The background has become softened, you can't see what's going on in the background, but you get a much clearer sense of the kid itself. Both of these are portraits of the kid. Do they both kind of maybe talk about the personality of the child? Yeah, one more on the overall physical. Can you tell that this kid is probably pretty active? That's a pretty high jump for a kid. I mean, he's really moving. He's
That's a big point.
Yeah. But then you have this really adorable smile with the glasses. He's kind of cute and charming. I mean, of course, it's portraiture and that's what they do. But distance can help play a role in understanding things. So sometimes when you want to have a certain subject and you don't know how to portray it, would it help if you zoomed in or zoomed out to be able to see more or less of what's around it? So what do you want to focus on? It also helps tell your story. So think about, okay, we just had the example of like the war with the gun. If we zoom in tight where all we see is a gun, what does that say? Versus if we zoom out and we actually see a gun with a hand on it and you see someone in the distance with their arms up. Does that say a different message?
Yes.
All right, so zooming in versus zooming out helps tell your stories.
So this one, right? Honestly, I looked at this one and it kind of looks like a reflection to me with this line right here. But you can tell that like the colors flow really well into one another. The gradient is really good. The theme here connecting all three of them is trees, obviously.
On this one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about was when you're going to have something more detailed up in the front. So look at these trees. This is a more textural style of painting, but can you guys see how much detail has gone into creating the bark on these trees and creating those leaves? Try to figure out where your detail needs to be. The details on the trees, so what happens to the background in these? Yeah, it's softened, it's just a blurred texture, it's color. Imagine if this was done in a solid gold. What if the background was just like a solid soft blue? It wouldn't be as interesting because we wouldn't have like the play in the color. So you can still get a nice interesting background by playing around with color and texture. This can be done really easily with most of your materials or by combining two different materials and doing something multimedia.
Schnoz.
So this is actually, where is it, guys? Yes, this is Mount Rushmore, and this is actually one of the repairs that took place, I think, it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. But you see the person on Mount Rushmore on like the nose, I think this is the nose of Washington, I'm not entirely sure though. What's really fun about this particular
the other piece was when it was first displayed,